Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I am so glad you are here with us today because we are about to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Usually we take a wide-angle lens. We look at entire books or broad movements in history or, these big sweeping scientific concepts.
We go macro.
We do. But today we are going to zoom in, way in.
We are getting microscopic today.
We are. We are setting our time machine dial for a very specific date. April 28, 1965. And we are walking into a modest living room in Elmira, New York. It's evening. The lights are probably low. And we are not just there to look at the mid-century furniture or, the shag carpet. We are there to witness a collision.
A collision is a perfect word for it. But we aren't talking about cars. We are talking about a collision between two totally different worlds.
Absolutely.
On one side, you have the gritty, sweaty, uncomfortable reality of human biology. Specifically, the really nasty business of nicotine withdrawal.
Oh, the shakes, the cravings, the irritability, all of it.
Exactly. And on the other side, crashing right into that biological mess, you have the profound, high-altitude, sort of detached perspective of a non-physical entity.
It is a unique vibe today. We are looking at the intersection of spiritual channeling and physical addiction. It's relaxed, it's a little bit chilling, and honestly, it is surprisingly funny.
Yeah, it is. We are looking at a very bad day for the medium, Jane Roberts.
Yeah.
And we are going to see how the entity she channels, Seth, handles a host who is, quite frankly, falling apart at the seams.
Okay, so let's set the stage properly before we really get into the drama.
Let's do it.
We are diving deep into session 150 of the early sessions, book 3 of the Seth Material, and as I mentioned, the date of record is April 28th, 1965.
And this is important. Before we go any further, we really need to give credit where credit is due.
Of course.
This entire deep dive is based on the Seth Material, which is published by the New Awareness Network. These guys are the custodians of this incredible library of work.
Absolutely. And as always, we have to drop our mandatory disclaimer for you listening. This podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Right.
We are here to explore these ideas, unpack the history, and see what we can learn. We aren't here to preach to you. We are just two curious people reading the notes.
We are just the guides. You have to walk the path.
Okay, let's unpack this. The mission for today is really threefold. First, I want to see how a spiritual entity deals with a biological crisis. Because usually when you think of channeled entities or high spiritual teachers, you think they are above it all, right?
Right. You expect them to say something like ignore the body, dull in the light, or simply transcend the pain.
Yeah, just float above it.
You don't expect them to get into the weeds of chemical dependency.
Exactly. Second, we have to talk about this mind-bending concept of moment points. Seth decides, in his infinite wisdom, to drop a lecture on the quantum mechanics of time right in the middle of a nicotine fit.
Which is a bold choice.
Very bold. And third, we're going to analyze the humor and the chilling reality of mortality that runs through these notes. Because this session didn't happen in a vacuum. It was triggered by something genuinely scary.
It was. And I think that is where we have to start. The context here is heavy. The notes for this session start with what they call a grim tale.
A grim tale.
Yeah. Jane Roberts, whom Seth refers to as Ruburt, was frightened. Badly frightened.
Now, Jane wasn't a skittish person generally. She was a writer, she was cynical, she was tough, but this got to her.
It did. The notes describe an incident involving an acquaintance of theirs. This was someone they knew personally, not just a headline in the paper.
That's a key distinction.
It is. This acquaintance had just developed lung cancer, and the notes make a point to specify very clearly that this acquaintance was a heavy smoker.
And Jane was a heavy smoker.
Jane was a very heavy smoker. It was the 1960s, remember? Everyone smoked. It was part of the writer's uniform. You sit at the typewriter, you have the coffee, you have the cigarette.
So you have this moment of intense identification. She sees this acquaintance, she sees the diagnosis, and she sees herself. It's like looking in a mirror and seeing a ghost.
And the reaction is visceral.
Yeah.
It's immediate. The notes say she made an abrupt effort to stop smoking immediately.
Abrupt is the key word there. You need to pause on that. This wasn't a planned lifestyle change.
Yo.
This wasn't a, I'm going to patch up and start fresh on Monday scenario. This was panic.
It was pure reactive panic. There was no plan, just a reaction.
The visual is so cinematic. The notes describe her physically throwing away a half-used pack of cigarettes, just tossing them in the trash.
That is such a universal human moment, isn't it? It's the bargain we make with mortality.
Oh, yeah.
And we see the consequences of a vice up close, and we think, if I stop right now, immediately, if I sacrifice this object, I can outrun the fate.
It's almost superstitious. Like, if I throw the object away, I throw the danger away.
If I don't have them in the house, the cancer can't get me. Precisely. It is a psychological pivot from routine to survival mode. But here is where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that gave me chills when I was reading the background.
Okay.
This wasn't just about this one acquaintance. There's a backstory here that adds a whole layer of metaphysical dread.
You're talking about the past life connection.
Yes, and this is something you only know if you are really reading the footnotes and the previous sessions. The introductory notes reference a previous session, session 87.
Okay, take us back. What happened in session 87?
In that session, it was revealed that Jane Roberts had lived a previous life in Boston, roughly a century prior to 1965.
Wow.
And she was a medium in that life, too.
So she has been doing this work for a long time, historically speaking.
Right, but in that life in Boston, she didn't just die of old age in her sleep, she died of cancer.
Oh.
And not only that, and this is the chilling part, she had clairvoyant knowledge of her own death.
What does that mean? She predicted it.
According to Seth, in that previous life, she knew she was going to die at 82 or 83, and she knew it would be cancer.
Whoa.
She lived with the foreknowledge of her own specific end.
Whoa. Stop there for a second. Imagine carrying that. Even if it is subconscious in our current life as Jane, that is a heavy narrative to have embedded in your psyche. I died of this before.
Exactly. It's a trauma loop. It's a groove in the record. A deep one.
But wait, didn't Seth address this? I thought the whole point of Seth was to empower her.
He did. He absolutely did. In that previous session, Seth explicitly stated, he promised, essentially, that she would not die of the disease again in this life.
He told her that straight up.
He was very clear about that. He said, you are done with that. That chapter is closed.
So here's my question, and I think this is the question for anyone who struggles with anxiety.
Yeah.
If you have a high-level spiritual guide, an entity who has demonstrated clairvoyance, telling you you are safe, you are not going to die of cancer this time, why the panic? Why throw away the cigarettes in such a frenzy?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it highlights the massive gap between intellectual spiritual knowledge and visceral physical fear.
The gap between the brain and the gut.
Exactly. You can know something in your mind. You can know it in your spirit. You can read all the philosophy you want. You can have an entity dictate a book through your own mouth telling you are safe.
Right.
But when your biological survival instinct is triggered by a grim pail right in front of your face, the biology takes over.
The animal body doesn't read the Seth material.
No, it doesn't. The animal body just sees the threat. The adrenaline spikes, the cortisol floods the system, the logic shuts down.
It's all just alarms.
Right. The promise from session 87 might as well be a million miles away because right now the body is just screaming, danger.
That is such a human struggle. We can be so enlightened on a good day, but give us a scare and we revert to basics.
We do. And that is the state Jane is in when she sits down for session 150. She is terrified. She is withdrawing from nicotine. She is irritable, and she is trying to channel.
So let's look at the atmosphere of the session itself. The notes are very specific about how Jane is acting. Usually when she goes into trance, it's pretty quick. She takes off her glasses, her eyes darken, and boom, Seth is there.
Right. It's usually a rapid transition, almost like flipping a switch.
But not tonight. The notes say she spoke in a very quiet voice.
Which, for anyone who knows the material, is highly unusual for Seth. Usually the Seth voice is described as booming, energetic, dynamic.
Yeah, he's got this presence.
He projects, he has swagger. But here, it is quiet, gentle, almost muffled.
And the pauses. The notes mention long pauses. She waited well over a minute just to begin speaking after she went into trance.
A minute is a long time in silence.
That is a lifetime in radio silence. You can feel the struggle.
It shows the resistance. The channel is clogged, so to speak. The friction of her physical state, the withdrawal symptoms, the fear is making it hard for the personality of Seth to come through clearly.
She's fighting her own body to let him in.
Yeah, it's like trying to tune in a radio station during a thunderstorm. There's so much static.
Exactly. But, and this is why I love this material, despite the tension, despite the fear, the notes say her voice bore humorous overtones.
Humorous overtones. That is a fascinating detail.
It is. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on the entity coming through.
No, not at all, which is just such a perfect entry point for him.
No, not at all. So, let's bring him in. Seth enters the chat. And he does not offer a warm, coddling hug. He doesn't say, oh, my poor Ruburt, let me take the pain away.
Not exactly. Seth can be very compassionate, but he is never indulgent. He doesn't do pity.
His opening line is, I am having some few difficulties here with our Balky Ruburt.
Balky. That's such a specific word. It's not a word we use much anymore.
It reminds me of a horse, a bulky mule that just plants its feet and refuses to move.
That is exactly the image. Jane is digging her heels in. She doesn't want to be doing this. She wants a cigarette. Her whole body is screaming for one.
And then he drops this absolute gem of a line. I have to read this verbatim because the tone is just perfect. This is Seth observing Jane's misery.
Okay.
He says, to think that all these years his good disposition has been dependent upon the cigarette between his lips and not upon any native good spirits. Alas.
Alas.
Alas. It's so theatrical. It's so dry.
It is, and it is incredibly dry.
Yeah.
Here is Jane in the throes of an existential crisis, shaking, terrified, probably sweating. And Seth is essentially saying, wow, so your nice personality was just the nicotine talking. That's disappointing.
It's savage, but it's funny. It really is.
It is funny, but I think it serves a very specific purpose. It breaks the tension. It recontextualizes the drama.
How so?
Jane feels like the world is ending. She feels like she is in a tragedy. Seth looks at it and sees a comedy. He sees a temporary chemical glitch.
So the use of alas suggests a sort of mock tragedy. He is teasing her.
He's absolutely teasing her. It reminds me of when a friend is freaking out over something minor and you kind of gently mock them to help them see it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, but for Jane, it felt like a huge deal.
Oh, absolutely. And Seth acknowledges that too. He immediately follows up by saying, he will do all right, even if I do rib him now and then.
So he knows.
He knows he's poking the bear, but he thinks the bear needs poking to snap out of the spiral.
So Seth is ribbing her, but he also dives into the mechanics of what is happening inside her head. And this is where we get into what he calls the subconscious panic.
Yes. This is fascinating psychology.
Yeah.
Seth describes Jane's subconscious as being in a panic, but he uses a weird word to describe the feeling. He says the subconscious feels cheated.
Cheated? How so? How do you cheat your own subconscious?
Well, apparently there was a plan, a prearranged agreement that Jane just blew up.
A plan.
Yeah. Seth reveals that he, or perhaps Jane's deeper intuition, had originally suggested a specific date for her to quit smoking. May 9th.
May 9th. And remember, this session is happening on April 28th, so she jumped the gun by about 10 or 11 days.
Right. Now, why May 9th? Seth explains that May 9th was the day after Jane's birthday.
Okay. A milestone. A new year for her. That makes sense.
It does, but Seth says he chose that date simply because it would be relatively easy for him at that time.
Meaning for Ruburt, for Jane.
Exactly. He says the subconscious had been preparing for that date. It had a schedule. It was ramping up to the change.
Okay, hold on. This implies something really significant about how our minds work. The idea that the subconscious mind has a calendar, that it preps for things.
It implies that the subconscious isn't just a chaotic, swirling pool of desires. It operates on expectations, cycles, and preparation. It's like a biological clock or a project manager.
And by quitting abruptly on April 28th because of fear,
she essentially pulled the rug out from under her own internal systems. She cheated the schedule.
That makes so much sense. Have you ever decided to go on a diet instantly, like at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday because you felt bad about lunch?
Every time.
And by 6 p.m. you were absolutely miserable?
Completely. Because there was no buy-in from the rest of the system.
But if you say, okay, starting Monday, I am changing my diet, you spend the weekend mentally preparing.
Right. You eat the last of the ice cream. You say goodbye to the pizza. Your mind gets ready for the change.
You allow the system to align. Jane didn't do that. She saw the grim tale of cancer, panicked, and threw the system into shock.
And that's why Seth says her subconscious feels cheated of that preparation time.
So the chaos she is feeling isn't just the lack of nicotine, it's the disruption of the plan. It's psychological whiplash.
Precisely. It's like waking someone up 3 hours before their alarm goes off. The body is confused, the mind is groggy, and nothing works right. Jane threw her inner systems into chaos by reacting to fear instead of sticking to the intuition or the original plan.
But Seth doesn't tell her to start smoking again, does he? He doesn't say, go back to it, smoke for 10 days, and wait for May 9th.
No, and that is important. Even though the timing is bad and the subconscious is throwing a tantrum, Seth says, good sense will rule the day. He calls it a heroic endeavor.
Heroic endeavor. That is high praise for quitting smoking. Usually we reserve heroic for saving kittens from burning buildings.
Well, breaking an addiction is a battle. Seth recognizes that. It's an internal war.
So he supports the goal, even if he critiques the execution.
Absolutely. He says the benefits are well worth whatever passing discomfort he fancies he feels.
Fancies he feels. There is that dry wit again. He is not letting her wallow in the victimhood of withdrawal.
No, he never does.
He is saying, yes, it hurts, but a lot of that hurt is in your head, or in your perception of the hurt.
Or, more accurately, in her perception of time and reality. Which brings us to the weirdest and most fascinating pivot in this entire session.
The pivot to physics.
Yes, the pivot to quantum mechanics, basically.
Yeah.
Out of absolutely nowhere.
Imagine the scene, again, for the listeners. Jane is sitting there, probably shaking a little, desperate for a cigarette, her mind racing with thoughts of cancer.
Total internal chaos.
And what does Seth, this timeless entity, decide is the most important thing to talk about right now?
Moment points.
Moment points. Not breathe deeply, not drink water, but let's discuss the nature of temporal perception.
It seems completely disconnected, doesn't it? It's almost absurd. I'm dying for a smoke, and the guide says, let us discuss the nature of time.
It feels like a distraction technique, like jingling keys in front of a crying baby. But knowing Seth, it's never just a distraction.
No.
Is it actually relevant to the smoking?
I think it is deeply relevant. If you look closely at what he is saying about moment points, it is actually a tool for handling the withdrawal. It's a coping mechanism disguised as physics.
So let's define it. We need to be precise here because the language gets a bit dense. How does Seth define a moment point?
He is very specific. He starts by saying what a moment is not. A moment is not a time division.
Yeah.
It isn't a second or a minute or a tick on a clock.
So it's not objective time. It's not what the watch says.
No. He says it is a psychic organization. Let me quote him directly here because of the wording matters.
Please do.
He says, a moment point represents the range of reality that can be conveniently embraced without undue strain.
Without undue strain. That is the key phrase for me.
Yeah.
That changes everything.
It is the crucial variable. Think of a moment as a container, a bucket.
Yep.
You fill that bucket with perceptions, actions, thoughts, sensory input. When the bucket is full, that is a moment.
So if I am relaxed, sitting on a beach, watching the waves.
You are embracing a wide range of reality.
Yeah.
The sound of the waves, the heat of the sun, the seagulls, the book you are reading, and there is no strain. Your system is relaxed. So the moment stretches out, it feels expansive.
Time slows down.
You are processing a lot of data easily, so your bucket is huge.
But if I am in a crisis, if I am Jane Roberts, terrified of cancer and craving nicotine.
Your capacity to embrace reality without strain shrinks dramatically. You can't handle much. The bucket gets tiny.
It's like a thimble.
Exactly. So your moments become very, very short.
Short, frantic moments.
Yes. Seth says, within what you call one moment, many such perceptions flash through. However, there is within your system a lapse before the organism can effectively organize these perceptions.
The lapse? What is that?
Think of it like a computer lagging. The data is coming in too fast. The fear, the craving, the physical sensation, the memory of the grim tale, and the psychic organization can't keep up. The system freezes. That is the strain.
That makes so much sense. When you are in pain or deep discomfort, a minute feels like an hour.
Yes.
Because you are checking reality every microsecond. Does it still hurt? Yes. Does it still hurt? Yes. Each yes is a tiny, frantic moment.
Precisely. The range of action you can handle is tiny. So you are experiencing thousands of moment points of suffering in what the clock says is just 5 minutes.
So why is Seth bringing this up to Jane right now? Is he trying to give her a mechanism to cope?
I believe so. He's trying to get her to redefine the moment. If she can understand that the moment is flexible, that it's defined by her attention and her capacity, maybe she can stop checking the clock. Maybe she can expand the container.
He says, my idea of a moment point is only an approximation of your physical moment. I am trying to make it plain here that the range of action is what is important. A moment point is a range of action.
Right. A range of action. If she can focus on the action, the heroic endeavor of quitting, the act of healing, rather than the time she's enduring without a cigarette, the strain might lessen.
It is a mental reframing. Instead of, I have gone 1 hour without a smoke, it is, I am in a range of action where I'm becoming a non-smoker.
And that range of action has its own duration independent of the clock. If you are immersed in the action, the strain disappears and the moment expands.
Man, that is deep. And he is delivering this while she is sitting there twitching.
Which is why the delivery is so fragmented. The notes say Jane's pauses were very long, and her delivery was broken by many other short pauses.
Right.
She is struggling to hold the channel open while this complex information comes through. She is basically trying to download a massive file on a dial-up connection that keeps dropping.
And eventually Seth realizes it's just too much. The connection is too unstable.
He does. He is pragmatic. He sees that the instrument is compromised.
This leads us into the final part of the session, which I like to call the struggle and the soldier.
I like that.
Because Seth doesn't just lecture her on physics. He eventually circles back to address the physical reality she is in.
He has to. He validates the difficulty, even while minimizing the fancy of the discomfort. He acknowledges the small indulgences the personality clings to.
We all have those. The coffee, the scrolling on the phone, the cigarette, the little pacifiers we use to get through the day.
And Seth points out that the personality, the ego, the constructed self, feels deprivation when those are taken away. It feels like it is losing a part of itself.
A real sense of loss.
But he counters that feeling of loss with the promise of health.
He gets specific about the health benefits. He doesn't just say, you'll feel better, which is vague.
No, he mentions a sinus condition that has always been aggravated by smoking. He says that will largely vanish, and he confirms that her health will show definite improvements.
It is interesting that he focuses on the sinus condition. It's such a mundane detail.
It is.
It's not, your aura will be brighter, but your nose will stop running.
It grounds the advice. It is practical. It's like saying, hey, I know you are miserable right now, but remember that annoying thing you deal with every morning. That's going to go away. It gives her something to look forward to that isn't abstract.
The tangible reward. But despite the encouragement and the promise of clear sinuses, the session is unusually short. It ends at 9:40 p.m.
That is very early for a Seth session. They often went much later, sometimes past midnight.
Seth makes the call to cut it short. He says, I shall not attempt now to carry on a regular session.
His reasoning is clear. Jane's subconscious is in a chaotic state.
Chaotic state. That's a strong diagnosis. It's not just distracted or uncomfortable. It's chaos.
The signal-to-noise ratio is too poor. The fear and the withdrawal are creating too much static. The channel isn't clear enough for the high-fidelity transmission of the material.
But I love his attitude about it. He isn't angry. He isn't disappointed. He doesn't say, Jane, you are failing me.
No. He is incredibly relaxed. He says, I expect to see the endeavor succeed, and certainly do not mind missing a session for this purpose.
That is a huge statement. The work, the production of the Seth Material, which they believe was this world-changing philosophical text, takes a backseat to the well-being of the medium.
It shows a hierarchy of values. The books are important, the information is important, but the human being comes first. The health goal is worth the lost words.
And he suggests they can make it up later. Perhaps we can make it up in an entirely different fashion. He's unhurried. He's chill about it.
He exists outside of time, remember. What is one missed session to an entity who sees all of time as simultaneous?
Good point.
He knows they have time. He isn't stressed about deadlines.
True. But then we get to the sign-off. And this, for me, is the most touching part of the whole document. It changes the entire tone of the interaction.
It is the emotional anchor of the session. It brings it all home.
He has spent the session teasing her, alas, lecturing her on physics and analyzing her chaotic subconscious. But how does he say goodbye?
Quote, my fondest regards to you both. Good night, Ruburt, you soldier, you.
You soldier, you.
It's such a shift from Balky to soldier.
It gives me goosebumps every time I read it.
It validates the battle. He knows it is a war inside her head. He knows she is fighting biology, habit, fear, and history. And by calling her a soldier, he elevates the struggle.
It's not just a bad habit she is kicking.
It is a battle she is fighting.
And winning.
And winning. He says there is no reason why he should not succeed. He has total confidence in her, even when she has zero confidence in herself.
It transforms the experience from suffering victim to active combatant.
Yes.
A soldier endures pain for a purpose. A soldier has discipline. A soldier keeps moving.
And a soldier keeps going even when it's chaotic, even when the plan falls apart. That's the whole point.
It's a moment of profound warmth. My fondest regards. He really cares about them.
He does. The relationship between Seth and Jean Ruburt is complex, but the underlying foundation is deep affection and respect. He sees her struggle, and he respects it.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's synthesize this. We have this session that balances humor and horror. We have the fear of cancer versus the alas of the lost cigarette.
The balance is the lesson. If you take the grin tale too seriously, you fall into panic. You create chaos. You cheat your subconscious.
Right.
If you take the humor too lightly, you miss the discipline required to change. You have to hold both You have to respect the biology, but not be ruled by it.
And the lesson on change is crucial. I think this is so practical for anyone listening.
Absolutely. The idea that even good changes can cause panic if they are rushed. Jane was doing the right thing, quitting smoking, but she did it in a way that traumatized her subconscious because she ignored her own internal timing.
That is a huge takeaway. If you are trying to change a habit or start a new routine, are you working with your subconscious schedule or are you trying to brute force it out of fear?
Fear is a terrible manager. It gets immediate results. She threw the cigarettes away, but it creates long-term chaos.
That's a great way to put it.
Seth's original plan of waiting for the birthday milestone would have been smoother. It respects the psyche's need for preparation.
And then there is the lesson on reality and time, the moment point.
This is the tool for resilience. Time isn't a clock tick. It is a bucket of attention. When you are stressed, your bucket is overflowing. You feel overwhelmed.
So the strategy is stop trying to swallow the ocean, shrink the range of action to what you can handle.
Yeah.
Or, paradoxically, expand your definition of the moment to include the discomfort as part of the process, not an interruption of it.
Right. Don't fight the lapse. Accept that the organism needs time to organize new perceptions. When you are quitting an addiction, you are essentially rewiring how you perceive reality. That takes time. It takes lapses. You have to allow the system to reboot.
And sometimes you just have to be a soldier.
Sometimes there is no metaphysical trick. Sometimes you just have to grit your teeth, accept the chaos, and march through the mud because the destination is worth it.
Good night, Ruburt. You soldier, you. I love that. It really sums up the whole thing.
It's the ultimate affirmation.
We promised a deep dive, and I feel like we have really explored the corners of this session. It is short, but it is dense. So dense.
It is a masterclass in human psychology, viewed from a spiritual lens.
Now, if you are listening to this and you are thinking, I need to read this for myself, please do.
Or you have to.
We can only cover so much in a deep dive, and my voice definitely doesn't do Seth justice.
We always encourage you to go to the source, study the Seth Material books directly. There is a texture to the raw sessions that you just have to experience.
You can find them at the New Awareness Network website and bookstore. That is sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Go check it out. These books are a treasure trove.
They really are. They change the way you see the world.
And before we go, I want to leave you with a thought, a little something to chew on as you go about your week, whether you are quitting something or starting something.
Okay.
We talked about moment points. We talked about how a moment is defined by how much reality you can handle without strain.
Right, that capacity.
So here is the question. If your moment is defined by that capacity, are you living in long, calm, expansive moments?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you living in short, frantic strobe light moments?
And what small indulgence, whether it is a cigarette or worry or anger or distraction, is holding your moments hostage? What is shrinking your bucket?
If you let that go, how much bigger could your moments get?
Something to think about.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you in the next Bone Point.
See you there.